Sometimes you just know something's wrong, but every test says you're fine. Every doctor says it's just a virus, and every voice around you tells you to stop worrying. But what happens when that instinct inside you is right? Susan's story is one of courage, loss, and radical self-trust. It's actually one of my favourite relatable stories we've recorded so far. After 10 rounds of IVF, 6 miscarriages, and months of being dismissed by doctors, Susan discovered the truth, a life-threatening brain condition that could have taken everything. In this episode, you'll learn what it really means to trust your body, how to tell the difference between fear and intuition, and why listening to your inner signals can quite literally save your life. This is a story about resilience, intuition, and healing on every level. Susan is an amazing person to listen to, and I cannot wait for you to dive into this episode. If you've ever felt dismissed, confused, or stuck in the space between symptoms and answers, you're not alone. This is What's My Body Telling Me, with me, Dr. Anthea Todd, the podcast where we believe your body isn't the problem, it's the solution. Together, we'll explore how to understand the messages your body sends through symptoms, how to support yourself through every stage of life, and why functional health, medicine, and energetics are all key to understanding and supporting your body. Here, we let feeling good become the baseline because life's too short to feel anything but alive. So, are you ready to start listening differently? Let's get into today's episode. You know, one thing I've noticed after working with women for years is this heartbreaking gap they keep falling through. They show up exhausted, on edge, cycling through pain, anxiety, bloating, and every single test says they're fine. And for practitioners, it's just as hard. You're doing everything you were taught to do, yet you're still stuck in the consult room thinking, what am I missing? That's why I built the Female Fundamentals Practitioner Training, for people who want to stop guessing and finally have a clear way forward. It's a framework that blends medical, functional, and energetic health, designed for practitioners who are ready to change the system from the inside out. You'll learn directly from me and 2 incredible experts, naturopath Lara Ryan on hair tissue mineral analysis and medical doctor Olivia Lessler on psychoneuroimmunology and bioenergetic medicine. You can start the self-paced modules straight away and you'll come together live on November 15th and 16th for an intensive virtual weekend. If you're ready to stop feeling stuck and start becoming part of the movement redefining women's healthcare, this is your moment. Join the founding 100 female fundamentals practitioners via the link in the show notes. It's her body, your move. Susan, thank you so much for coming and joining us on the What's My Body Telling Me podcast. I wanted to start by asking you, why did you want to come on the podcast to share your story?
When you put on your social media about if you have something that will inspire women to keep going or inspire someone that's struggling to keep going, all that anyone ever tells me when I retell my story is that it's so inspirational that you somehow kept going and you somehow survived. And yeah, so that's why, just to give, people hope and just so they don't give up. If your instinct's telling you there is something else wrong, just stick with it, because both major times with me, I have stuck with it and tried to source different people that will help me, and it has changed my little world.
Yeah. So I don't know you, I've never met you other than about a minute ago, but I've been reading through your story, and as I mentioned to you, it's in a nice way, a colourful story, if we want to put it that way. Very tumultuous, a lot of ups and downs. In your own words, how would you describe your story? You can start from start to finish, however you want to explain it for the listeners.
So it started, there's quite a few things that happened in my life, in my adult life. We found it hard to fall pregnant when I was married. We found it hard to fall pregnant and found out we had to do IVF. So We did IVF, which is a pretty rough journey for anyone that's been down that road or have had trouble falling pregnant. We were told initially when we couldn't fall pregnant, we had the conversation, my husband at the time and I had a conversation about if we can't have kids, that's fine. We just won't have any. We'll go traveling, we'll do whatever. But then we sat in front of a doctor and he said, you cannot have kids naturally at all. And we left that doctor's surgery and both looked at each other and said, we'll do whatever it takes to have children. So we did. We had to go down the IVF road. Our first attempt was successful and we had my 16-year-old now, Siobhan. And we did 10 rounds and then we eventually had my 12-year-old Isla. In between that time, we had 6 miscarriages and we had 2 that completely didn't work. So when you go back for your blood test 2 weeks later, it was just a negative, like, sorry, it didn't work. With the miscarriages, when I initially had the first miscarriage, I just bawled my eyes out, inconsolable for 2 days. After that 2 days, something came over me and I was just having a chat to myself at home and I just said to myself, you need to get yourself together. You need to stop crying. You need to just deal with this. Well, for whatever reason, the baby was just not going to happen and you lost the baby. And if you stay in this sadness, you will not have another attempt because you'll just be too far gone. And so I said to myself, I'll give myself until the next morning and snap out of it. And I woke up the next morning without a tear in my eye, no feeling of sadness, no nothing. And then we didn't have the 6 miscarriages and the 2 negatives all at once. It was all mixed in. But the miscarriages after that and the negative results after that, I just dealt with. And it wasn't until sort of the last 2 years that I realized that I pushed all that down into my nervous system that I had to deal with. But at the time, I just thought that I was just dealing with it really well. And I wanted to have another child because I didn't want Siobhan to be by herself if anything was to happen to her dad and I. So, and it's kind of, anyone that's been through IVF will understand, it's, you kind of get obsessed with trying again and finding another answer. And I was a nurse prior to being a PT and a coach. And so I just knew to seek out another doctor if I wasn't given a good answer, I just knew in my heart that that person wasn't the person to help me forward. So when I said to my initial IVF doctor, I was like, why do I keep losing them? And he just turned around to me and said, it's just the way it is. So I left his surgery and I did more research and found another doctor, and which was recommended to me. And she was brilliant. And we ended up eventually having Isla, and that was great. But yeah, with IVF, I don't know, I just want women to just trust in themselves, and it is a rough journey, and unfortunately no one that hasn't been through it that tells you it'll work eventually, you'll be fine, etc., etc. It's really, really hard to listen to that. I know that it's coming from a really good place.
Yeah, and that is the thing, like, from someone, I've never been through IVF. I do have a lot of people in my life that have been down that journey or are contemplating doing it. People that aren't even trying but thinking, will I have to, will I not, like all of those different things. But when you were in it, and as you explained so eloquently, when you had that first miscarriage and you just felt like you were falling in a heap, and then you sort of were like, snap out of it, I'm giving you this amount of time.
Yeah.
What were the stories that were going on in your head when you didn't have like the snap out of it? And then what was the story that you were telling yourself about the journey when you continued on?
When we initially got a negative, or found out we miscarried for that initial one, I just could not see past the miscarriage. I couldn't see past, will this ever work for us? Like I was stuck in that, it's not going to work, like complete negativity over it.
That was the meaning that you made of the event.
Yeah. This is going to be hard this whole time. And because we were successful the first time, like that's the easiest path that anyone's going to have in IVF.
Mm-hmm.
You have your eggs collected, fertilized, transferred, positive pregnancy test, a baby. Like it's your dream road to IVF. And then when that sort of road doesn't happen second time around, then you're like, oh, what's happened? Why won't I fall pregnant? Why can't I hold on to it? Is it me? Is it not? What's the problem? What can I do better? What can I do better next time that will work? And then when a couple of days later, when I was like, you need to snap out of this, I just knew that if I stayed in that sadness, I probably wouldn't have been able to have another attempt mentally. And I very much think most things happen for a reason as well. And so who knows, something may have been wrong with the baby on any level.
Mhm.
And it just, at that point in time in my life, it wasn't meant to be. And
Mhm.
that's how I was like, just wasn't meant to be. I can't bring the baby back, so I just need to move forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you started telling yourself that different story, and I suppose from an outsider's perspective, that's how an outsider's trying to help you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of the
Yeah.
stories that they will try and tell you, or meaning behind the event, it's all well-meaning, as you just said, but
Yeah.
it doesn't we have to be able to come to that ourselves. Someone else could tell
Yeah.
us any number of different things, but it's like when you're ready to, and when you actually can believe a different story,
Yeah.
that's when things start to change, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
then you had your beautiful second daughter
Yeah.
after multiple rounds of IVF and multiple subsequent miscarriages, after finding a different doctor. What happened then?
I had Isla, and 7 weeks later, went back to basketball. And after the game, I just walked outside and I got a massive, massive headache. And I'm not a headache sufferer or anything, or wasn't. And I got a massive headache. I drove home from the game. I just said to everyone, I've got to leave now. So I went home, didn't think anything of it. I lay down on the couch. My husband at the time was at work, so I just called my mum, didn't think it was a big deal. And she came and she took both the kids. And I went to bed and I woke up thinking my headache would be gone, and it was not. Over a period of 4 months, this headache just got worse and worse. And then it just stayed the same. It just stayed unbelievably bad. Like, I couldn't see, I couldn't hold my head up. I had to try and look after these children. One was going into 3-year-old kinder. The kinder was, just to give perspective, the kinder was 4 doors up the road, and I could not walk up there to drop her off.
Mm.
I would have the kids during the day, and then my husband at the time would come home and I would hand him Isla, the youngest, and I'd fall straight asleep. And the only reason I knew I was asleep was because I remember waking up. And just my headache, my eyes felt like they were bulging out of my head. Everything felt fluidy or swollen. And I saw multiple doctors at the time. I had doctors come to the house, and everyone said to me, you are fine. It's just a virus. You're just a new mum. Every single one of them, multiple times. My GP was really good. She was the only one that looked into the back of my eyes, because I said, I feel like there's a sticky note in the middle of my eye and I feel like my eyes are bulging out of my head. And she had a look in the back of my eyes, and initially she's like, I can't see anything. And then fast forward 4 months down the track, my mum took 3 months off work so she could have my kids during the day or be there with me during the day. And I'd literally, if you think of the back of your couch, I literally would sit there like this feeding, and then they'd go to sleep. And then one would have to go to kinder and I wouldn't be able to take her, or some days I would be able to take her. And then it got to, so that was the March, and then it got to the May, and my GP went overseas, and I came home and I was really, really sick, and I tried to go back to work in between this and I couldn't.
When you say you were really, really sick, what type of sickness? Was it like
Not
nausea?
vomit sick, just a full headache.
Okay.
Could not hold, my head was just so heavy I had to hold it in my hands. I just couldn't function. I just couldn't function. Walking was hard. It felt like I was inside a cloud and I looked weird to everyone.
Okay.
So it just felt like I wasn't at all any part of myself. And then my GP went overseas, and I went to emergency at one of the local hospitals. And the doctor there in triage said, I suppose you want a CT scan? And I said, oh, that would be great, please. And he said, it's a little bit dramatic, don't you think? And I was like, at this point, I'd just given up as well. And I was like, awesome, thanks. And then I was sitting there in the little room, little cubicle, and across from me was the one where they do the eye testing. I could see all the charts. And he never took me over there, never checked my eyes, never looked in my eyes after me telling him the symptoms. And then I said to him, "Are you going to do a blood test?" And he said to the nurse, "Oh, just give her an FBE." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting nowhere here." And then, so they did the FBE, and then he said, "It's just a virus. We haven't got the blood test results back, but I can tell it's just a virus. And you're a new mum. You're going to be tired. That's just how it is." And I said, "Honestly, though, my child wakes once a night. Like, I just don't think it's just because I'm a mum, and I think it's worse than a virus." And he's like, "It's not." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I can't give you antibiotics. It's a virus. Antibiotics won't do anything." And I said, "No worries." And then he left. And then we were waiting for the blood results, but he came back in the meantime. He goes, "Oh, here's a broad spectrum antibiotic, just in case." And I said, "You just said it was a virus." And he said,
Mm.
"Yeah, well, you don't want to get any sicker." And I just was like, "I need to leave." So I just got up and left. I didn't wait for the results. I didn't wait for anything.
So they didn't end up doing a CT scan at that stage?
No, and never looked in the back of my eyes. And then must have been the next week, my doctor came back. I went into her on the Wednesday. My mum just said, "You need to go back to your GP and figure out what's going on here." So I went into her and she said, "I can't believe you're still sick." She looked in the back of my eyes. She goes, "I can't see anything, but go to your local optometrist and see if they can look in the back of your eyes and see if there's anything wrong." So I rang on my way home and they said, "We have an appointment in 20 minutes. Can you get here?" And I said, "I'll be there." So I went home, said to my mum at the time, "Can you please look after the kids?" My husband at the time was at work. So she did that. I went straight there and he took one look in my eyes and he said, "Oh, didn't know if I was offended by swearing, anything." And he's like, "You are so incredibly sick." And I said, "I knew I was sick. I knew there was something wrong." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "You're bleeding into the back of your retinas." And because I said, "I've got a sticky note in the middle of my eye." He goes, "You've got 3 blood clots in the back of your eye."
Mm.
Anyway, he said, "We don't see this in real time." This makes me very emotional. "We don't see this in real time. So can I get my staff to have a look at it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, no worries." So they took photos of the back of my eyes to show me first, and then they all came in and had a look. And then he started calling the receptionist and cancelling his clients for the day. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm taking you straight to emergency. Like, you cannot be driving. You are very sick. It's either meningitis or meningococcal." And I was like, "Oh my God." So uh, meningitis or MS, sorry. And anyway, so then I said, "You don't need to cancel. I've been driving this whole time. Like, I'll just drive home. My husband will come and take me to hospital." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Is there any hospital you don't want to go to?" So I obviously said the hospital that I'd been to. I actually said a few. And I said, "So figure it out. I'll go anywhere else." So he sent me to the Austin here in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And they were flawless with my care. So I went home. I met my husband at the time at home. And I walked in the door and I just burst into tears. Like I said, I knew I was sick. I knew there was something wrong with me. Why is it taking this long for someone to listen? Anyway, so then my husband took me straight to hospital. My kids were then hysterical because I'd come in crying.
Mm.
So he took me to hospital and I just begged them in emergency. I said, "Please don't send me home until you find out what's wrong with me." So they did blood test, a CT scan, a lumbar puncture, my first lumbar puncture. The neurologist came down to see me. They were brilliant. And my lumbar puncture at the time was 18. And he said, "It's not too bad." He said, "Anything above 20 is something to be concerned about, but we're just going to keep you here." So they did another lumbar puncture at 2 a.m. in the morning and it had gone up to 22. And then they said, "How are you feeling?" I was still feeling terrible. So then they admitted me at 5 a.m. And when I woke up, when I went up to the ward, fell asleep, I woke up and there were 6 doctors around the end of my bed. And I said, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" And they said, "You're incredibly sick. We need to find out what's wrong with you. So we need to run multiple tests throughout the day. Are you fine with everything?" I said, "Yep, do whatever you need to do. I don't care."
Mm-hmm.
So I had blood tests that were sent interstate. They were sent overseas. I couldn't go home to my kids. I found it very hard to have them in there because to say goodbye was extremely hard when I didn't know what was happening. I was in there for a couple of weeks, or just under 2 weeks. And then it was a long weekend in June. And I said to my neurologist, "Can I please go home for the long weekend?" And he said, "You can, but if anything gets any worse, we need to bring you back in." And I said, "Yep, no worries, totally understand." So I went home, and then on the Sunday, had to keep checking my eyes. And then on the Sunday, my eye got worse. So I rang and I said, oh, my doctor said I need to come back in. So just ringing to let you guys know. And they said, the nurse unfortunately said, well, don't come back in. It's a long weekend. He's not going to come in and see you. So just wait it out until your outpatient's appointment. I can see here on Thursday. I said, are you sure? It really was specific that I needed to come in. And he's like, no, just your outpatient's appointment will be fine. I'm like, are you positive? And he's like, yeah. I said, okay. So I went to my outpatient's appointment on Thursday, and then all hell broke loose. They took one look at the back of my eyes and they said, you should never have been discharged from hospital. Like all the bells and whistles, everything. So I got taken back to emergency. And when I got there was already someone waiting for me with a wheelchair. And they're like, Susan Bell, that was my name at the time. And I said, yes, that's me. I said, I don't need a wheelchair though. I can walk. I just don't feel great. And she's like, you're going upstairs. Get in your wheelchair. Get in the wheelchair. Anyway, so I went upstairs, and then I had my 4th lumbar puncture almost straight away, and my fluid was 36. So I was very unwell, and they came to me the next morning and said, that night, they said, there's going to be a meeting tomorrow morning about you with multiple doctors because we don't know what's going on. And I said, okay, no worries. Anyway, my neurologist is like, you're really calm about this. I'm like, I'm just grateful that you're trying to do something to help me. Then the next morning he came past and he goes, okay, so this is serious. You need emergency brain surgery. It's happening today at 10 o'clock and the surgeons are going to come down and talk to you. And I said, does it have to be today? I haven't seen my kids. And where has this come from? And he said, we can't stop the pressure. We can't stop anything. Your eyes are getting worse. Your vision's getting worse. You can't even stand up for a long period of time. We need to do this surgery now. We need to put a shunt in and alleviate the pressure.
So what was happening is that there was increased fluid building up around your brain and eyes?
Yeah, and my body wasn't able to get rid of it. So it was just a constant build-up. And then I said, can I at least see my kids? Can I just wait till Monday? And he said, I don't know if we have till Monday. And I said, what? And he said, well, if you don't have this brain surgery within 2 weeks, you will lose your vision, have a stroke, or die. And I said, well, out of all of those 3, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be dependent. I don't want to be here. And then he spoke to the surgical team and he came back and he said, you're staying in here over the weekend, obviously, and we're going to monitor you flat out. They know to call me if anything else happens, and we'll wait till Monday so you can see your kids, or if you see your kids before then, we'll do it before then. And I said, okay, no worries. And then they did wait till the Monday, and I saw my kids on the Sunday and said goodbye, and that was one of the hardest things. And then on the Monday morning, they came down and said, okay, we're ready. And I was like, all right, let's go. So I went and had the surgery, and I came back to the ward, and I woke up in recovery, and my neurologist, who was brilliant, he came and he's like, oh, Susan, your hair looks terrible. I'm like, it feels terrible. He's like, you've got so many ponytails going around. I'm like, I don't even have a headache. And he's like, what? I'm like, I don't have a headache. I feel so good. Thank you.
Oh.
And then I went up to the ward and there, because I'd been there for so long, and they're like, hey, Suze, how are you going? I'm like, I don't have a headache. I do not have a headache at all. I feel great. And then within a couple of days, they discharged me. And so I had a shunt attached up here, and the tubing ran down the back of my head. There was a little adjuster here at the bottom of my skull where they would put a magnet on and turn it to make the pressure more or less. It was fairly new at the time.
Wow.
And then the tubing ran down the side of my neck, down the back of my sternum, and drained into my stomach. So
time for a body break. This isn't just a moment to skip, it's a moment to connect, especially if what we've been chatting about has stirred something up. Take a breath in and place a hand over your heart. And breathing out, connect to the beat underneath your hand. Can you feel it? This is your body's way of saying, I'm here and I've got you.
I had the surgery. The surgery went well, and I was heavily overweight at the time. And I thought, if my weight has anything to do with this, I'm doing something about it. And that just made me so incredibly healthy. So I started to lose weight, and my weight loss started, I messaged my cousin in Ireland who was a PT, and I said to him, I need your help. I need to lose weight. I'm 107 kilos. If this is anything to do with my brain stuff, can you please help me? And he said, eat nothing from a packet and weigh yourself every day. I'm like, all right, cool. So I did that. And then
had the doctors alluded to or said anything about the weight being an issue, or you were just like, I feel like the weight can't be benefiting?
When I went to one of my post-op appointments, I said to him, is my weight an issue? And he said, we don't know. We don't know what the virus was or is, but we believe that you've had a virus and it's damaged you internally because we didn't know what it was and we didn't know how to treat it, and it was left untreated for 4 months. And this is the consequence now. This is what you're left with. We don't know if it's your weight, but we don't know that it's not. And I said, okay. And yeah, so I started on a little weight loss journey, and I'm far more educated now in that space. But yeah, at the time I didn't eat anything from a packet, no processed food, no nothing. And I just dropped weight. It took me 2.5 years to drop 45 kilos.
Yeah, wow.
That was sort of at the start. It was the usual up and down, start, stop. This is too hard. All those kind of stories. And I went through everything, like every single story, everything my clients tell me I've used. So in that time, 6 months maybe after I had the initial surgery, it was like when you tie your hair up and you have that little tight hair and you have to pull at it because it's too tight. It was that feeling on the inside of my head. So it nearly sent me crazy. I just kept pulling at my head. I went back to my neurologist. I was there very frequently. I was there every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what the pressures were doing and how bad my head felt. And one of the appointments, I was like, there's just a pulling sensation inside my head. Can you please fix it? And they checked it. The nurse checked it. He had another look and he's like, I can't tell anything from here. And I said, okay. And he's like, just try and persevere with it because we don't want to be doing another brain surgery. I'm like, I don't want to be doing another one either. So it was left, and every appointment they're like, is it any better? And I was like, nope. Then over time, it just drove me more and more crazy. And in the end, I begged him to take it out. I said, I will sign any paperwork if I have to have it put back in, because they initially didn't want to obviously take it out because we didn't know what was causing it. We didn't know if the pressure was going to come back. But I begged, and eventually he said, yes, we'll take it out. And it wasn't an emergency surgery that time, which was great. So they just booked me in. It's a public system. They booked me in whenever they could. So it came out in the January of 2014. So I went in for that surgery, and I said to the nurse when I was waiting to go in, and my husband at the time was there, and I said, oh, how long is this going to take? And she goes, 45 minutes. I'm like, 45 minutes, amazing. So I went in, had the surgery, came back out, and my husband at the time was like, oh, okay, see, I'm going home to the kids. I'm like, already? It's been like an hour, probably max, from me being in recovery. And he's like, it's 3.5 hours, Susan. I'm like, okay, no worries. Go home, see the kids. Bye. Yeah. So he left, and then I called the nurse. I was like, come over here. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, we couldn't get it out. They couldn't get it out. It took 3.5 hours. And I said, what happened? So my tissue had grown around it. Mm-hmm. And so when they initially thought that they would just be able to open my skull again and just unclip it and pull it out, but they couldn't get it out. So they had to do further surgery to completely go in, unclip it, get it out from around this area that the tissue had grown around, and take it out. So that left me with this little lifelong complication that I've had ever since. So I need to manually have my head drained now. It's every 4 to 5 weeks. I've tried to let it go for 6 weeks multiple times, and I just feel terrible.
All your symptoms start to come back, like the vision.
Yeah. Just no energy. I physically can't keep my eyes open. So I was having cranial massages every month, which in the lead up to them, like maybe 3 days before, I would start to go downhill. So I would book it in. And then for about a week after, in that recovery of the fluid moving around, I would feel terrible. Mm-hmm. There's a gentler method now. Lymphatic drainage works really well for me now. So I have that. And that helps me heaps, but it's still costly and every 4 to 5 weeks, but a minor consequence, like I don't have any other issues.
So when you go and get it manually drained, you're going to a lymphatic masseuse. It's not necessarily that you're going to
Yeah.
the hospital for them to.
No, I don't go to the hospital at all. So I see my myo does lymphatic drainage, and so I see her for that. And it's very light, it's very gentle. I still feel terrible, but not as bad as with a cranial massage.
Yeah. Do you do some of those techniques for yourself as well, like
It,
throughout your days, or?
it actually makes me feel very sick.
Mm.
So I've tried to do it on myself, but I just feel terrible. So I can't. It's hard. I can't kind of bring myself to do it to myself all the time.
Yeah.
So
you, even when the masseuse is doing it on you, you feel terrible, but then you feel better afterwards.
Yeah, so I can't speak. So a lot of people here won't actually treat me because I do tell them that I feel terrible when my head is being treated. And initially when I went to see Alyssa, who does most of my treatments now, I filled out my name, date of birth, my address on the form, and I just went to see her because everyone had said no before her, or 5 people had said no before her. My initial one went on maternity leave. And when I was in the process of finding someone else, they all said, no, sorry, like it sounds like we can't treat it, like we don't want you to feel like that, et cetera, et cetera. So I went to her and I just filled out my details and I went up there and she goes, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable treating it. And I'm like, I'm not leaving here. I have an hour appointment and I'm not leaving here. Please treat it. I've been completely honest. I feel terrible. I won't be able to speak, but I promise I'll feel better in the end. Like I'll feel better in a few days. And she was brilliant. She treated it. I felt terrible. I can't even speak. I can hear them talking to me. I'm obviously with it. I can hear them talking to me, but I just can't speak. So, yeah. And she treats me and I leave, say thank you and leave.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. People that I've been friends with for a long time that have been through this whole ordeal with me have experienced every part of it. But
It seems like you are, obviously, as I said at the start, I don't know you. I didn't know you before we started recording this podcast. But what you are emanating, and what I'm sure the listeners can hear, is there's a lot of underlying positivity, self-trust,
yeah.
even though you have been through a lot.
Yeah.
How do you find that you have that?
When I was doing IVF and the miscarriages started happening, I didn't know until years later that I was retraining my brain out of old habits and old things I'd been told, especially weight loss wise, like eat fat free, eat this, don't eat that, do this, do that, and retraining my brain out of all of those things. So when the brain surgery came around, all I kept thinking about was, I'm glad it's me and not someone else I know. Like, I'm fine to deal with this and I'm strong enough to deal with this. And maybe that's why I have to, because it doesn't stop me in my tracks, as in I still work. I never have sick days. I always, no matter how bad my head is, I will walk to the gym door and I'll just go, all right, switch it on, Susan. Like, you've got 3 hours, let's go. And even if it's really tough for me with my clients, a lot of my clients that I've had for years know exactly, because they can tell in my eyes when my head's really bad. And a lot of them will know that I'm not great, but I just keep it together. And I literally talk to myself in my head like, it's just half an hour. Just get through this hour. Just get through this half an hour. Just get through this hour. And I don't know. I don't know. I just stay positive. Like no amount of feeling sorry for myself or being negative or wishing it wasn't the case is going to change anything.
So that mental strength is incredible. What things do you find help you? So I can hear that it's an interesting concept that I've actually been realizing in myself, but also a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of my friends, family, people in my life will see it, and we can sometimes resonate with it when we are people that are like, I can do hard things. I can just push through. I can just keep going. How do you balance that? Obviously, when things are happening, it's a really great resource and tool to be able to pull on and be like, I am resilient. Like, that resilience is really helpful. How do you balance that with also going like, I also do want ease. I also do want my life to feel amazing and not feel like I have to always be pushing through. How do you balance that?
I do find that really hard because I would love my life to be a little easier sometimes. But I don't really in the moment, I don't really think about, I just want this to be easy. I
Mm-hmm.
just literally think the next step.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do from here? How will today get better? Like after my treatment, I just know that I'm going to feel horrendous. And there's actually nothing much that I can do about feeling like that unless I take Nurofen flat out, or I take, something to help me feel better, my head to feel clearer in that moment. But I literally just go, just write it out. You'll be fine. Just write it out.
Mm.
And I would like it to be easier sometimes, but
Are there
I just
things
don't.
that you do that feel good? Like it's like of ease. Like I guess like people might call it like self-care. The things that you're like, oh, I'm doing these things when I feel good to feel better.
I know. So I dislike having a massage a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people do that for self care, but to me, it's just really painful. It's never
Mm.
been a pleasant experience. So that kind of self care I don't really do. I do love going to the beach, and that's nice. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, if my head's bad, I can't drive for long. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think I just yeah. I guess because my life is so busy as well, like everyone else's. I
Mm.
need to work for my children, for myself. I love
Mm-hmm.
my job. I love my clients. I have to have my head treated. I do that, and I just bear the consequences of that recovery, the lead up to it when it starts to go pear shaped. And I just do it all again the next month.
Mm. And I suppose it's a great thing, even what you said there, because I think when we say self-care, a lot of us can default to going, oh, you go and get a massage or
Mm,
go and get your nails done or do this thing.
yeah,
And it's like, well, I don't like that. So like that
yeah,
for you is not self-care, but as you just said, the going to the beach, but even you love working, like you love what you
yeah.
do.
That's right.
So
That's right.
obviously there's an aspect, as you said, of, well, I need to earn an income, I need to live, I need to be able to provide for my family and all the things that work comes. But it is also, oh, I actually enjoy the doing of work. I enjoy
Yeah,
being able to do that. So in a way, it is self-care because you're
yeah,
enjoying the doing of it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how have you tried any other types of modalities? Because as you know from my work, I love to talk about medical, functional, energetic, how they're all important. For instance, when you have fluid buildup
Yeah,
and you've had a virus and all those things are happening, you do need medicine. And it's amazing to be to be able to do what they did, the brain surgery,
yeah,
and be
for
able to
sure.
put the shunt that's running down the back of your skull, down your neck, into behind your chest and your sternum. That is incredible that people even know how to do that and have figured that
Yeah.
out. So it's incredible that we have that and you've been able to access that. But now I suppose, how do you look after that, the functional and the energetic side of your health?
So initially, when all this brain surgery stuff happened, like I was not down this road. I wasn't, had never been to breathwork, never been to never spinal energetics, never done anything like that. But 2 years ago, I started to get really tired, and another little obstacle. But I got really tired and I kept going to the doctor saying, I'm just exhausted. I don't know why. And then I ignored it for a bit because everyone said I was fine and whatever. And then I ended up having a blood test and my iron level was 2 and my ferritin was 2. And they said, oh, you need to go and have an iron infusion. And at the time, I found like I was really out of it. I was just so tired. I was like leaving it in anyone's hands who could help me. So I had an iron infusion and then I got a super heavy period afterwards, so it just left my body.
Mm.
And I had no bleeding. I had a gastroscopy and colonoscopy with the first one, and I was completely fine. And so I had the iron infusion. I went back 6 weeks later. She's like, Susan, you're going to feel really good. I'm like, okay, no worries. So I went back, had my blood test 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, and she said, your ferritin is 6. And I was like, how come it didn't work? Because I feel exhausted. And she's like, you would be exhausted still.
Mm.
So off I went, had another one, came back, it was 8. And I was like, I've had 2 now. Like, what's going on? And I was still just wrecked. It was like the brain surgery time. And I literally went to work, looked after my kids, went to bed. And my kids were older by now. And I was just not really doing much else. I would train because everyone would said I was fine, so I'd still go train. It's a massive part of my life, probably my self-care, to be honest. And I had the third infusion, and then it came to a fourth. And that's when I was like, no more, figure it out. What's going on? Why am I not holding on to this iron? They're like, oh, it's just your ferritin's too, blah, blah, blah. Your ferritin's low, sorry. So it had gone up to 8, and then I refused that fourth. Then I had another blood test, and it was back down to 4. I went to Brisbane to house sit my brother's house, was there for 10 days. I literally got up, went and trained, came back, lay on the couch, went to sleep at night, woke up, did that the next day for 10 days. I had no kids with me. They were still here. I came back from that holiday. On my Instagram, which I never do, I put on my story, low iron and flying is killing me or something. And because when I fly, the pressure build up in my head's really bad, the brain stuff. And then I was tired from the iron. Anyway, so I came back to work and I was filling in for one of our coaches that was away. I ran the 9:30. She came to the class. She came back at 5:30, never trains twice a day. So what are you doing back here? And she goes, oh, what's going on with your iron? I'm like, oh, it's 2. Why is that? And she said, what else do you have other results? I'm like, oh, I would have them all in my phone. I haven't actually looked at them though, to be honest, but they said it's just my iron. And she goes, can I have a look at them? I'm like, yeah, I'll show you after class. I just need to run this class right now. And so I ran the class. Oh, no, as I was about to run the class, I said, what do you do for a job? And she goes, I'm a hematologist. And I said, oh my God, are you going to help me? She goes, I think I'm about to save your life. And I was like, what? I'm running this class. So I ran the class. We sat down in the grass, a few of us, having a chat, and I handed her my phone. I said, there's all my results. Anyway, so she was looking through and she's like, Susan, you're really sick. And I said, what? And she goes, oh, just let me keep looking. And I was like, yeah, cool, no worries. Anyway, she turned to me and she goes, you could drop dead. And I said, what? She goes, your thyroid, your spleen, your liver, everything. And I said, are you kidding? She goes, have you not looked at these? I'm like, I feel so crap. They said it was my iron and I feel too sick to even care. And so she said to me, go and have a vitamin infusion. You need to go to a doctor, but go and have a vitamin infusion tomorrow to keep hold of whatever you've got, and we'll go from there. And I said, okay. And she said, I'll get you in somewhere. I'm like, okay, no worries. So she tried to get me into one of the hospitals here, but the wait list and I just got lost in the system over the week and I never heard from anyone. So then I just said, I'll just go private. I will just pay for this. I don't care, like, if this is going to help me. I had another vitamin infusion in the meantime. And I went back to my GP to get a referral for a private hematologist. And I said, how have you missed all of this? And she said, oh, Susan, I'm so sorry for being so negligent. And I said, aren't you glad I'm not recording this conversation? I'm like, how could you do this to me? I've seen her for years. I'm like, how can you do this to me? And she's like, we've just missed it. We've literally just missed it. I'm like, but you've missed everything. You've just seen my iron. And she said, I know, and I'm really sorry. And so I just said, can I just have the referral? Can you please get me an appointment? So then I said, actually, don't worry about it. And I was fuming when I was in there talking to her, and I just lost it because I said, I've just been told the other day that I could potentially pass away. Is this correct? And she said, I'm really sorry, Susan, you're really sick. So I went to the hematologist at another local hospital on the following Tuesday, and he just spoke to me and I said, I'm here for an iron infusion and a blood transfusion, and I need it ASAP till I find out what else I can do. And at this stage, I still hadn't been down any other road. And he said, oh, I can't give that to you. There's nothing more we can do for you. And I said, what? And he said, there's nothing more we can do for you. I said, are you kidding? And he's like, I'm really sorry, Susan. I'm like, oh my God. So I left there, burst into tears, like knowing the feeling that people have when they are told by someone that you want to help you in the medical industry that there's nothing more that they can do. And he just let me roam out on the street. And anyway, so I left.
He was like, there's nothing more we can do, as in like, you're too far gone for
Yes.
us, or we don't know what to do.
No, there's nothing more we can do. You're too far gone.
As in, you're going to die.
Correct.
See you later. Wow.
So it was the second time in my life I was told I could potentially die. I walked out of the hospital doors and just burst into tears. And I'm not actually a crier, but I just was hysterical walking back to my car, and I literally was like, I need to save myself here. I need to save myself here. Drove home. I printed off all of my results, and having a nursing background, I was so sick that it didn't even occur to me to look at my results. I just left everything in everyone else's hands.
Mm.
And I printed off all my results, and I started swallowing like doTERRA oils and tried to just find people that would help me on the internet and stuff until I could figure this out. I went back to the wellness center that I'd been going to for the infusions, and the owner there said, "Hey, Suze, what are you doing back here? Oh, how are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, good." She goes, "What are you doing back here?" I'm like, "Just having another infusion. I'm just haven't been very well with my iron and stuff." And she goes, "Have you got your results?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Why is that?" She goes, "I don't reckon you're very well. Can you show them to me?" And I was like, "Yes, sure." So I showed them to her, and she's like, "I'm getting you into my naturopath. You are so sick." And I was like, she goes, "Are you open to a naturopath?" I'm like, "Honestly, I'm open to anything. I just need someone to help me."
Mm-hmm.
So she called her naturopath, and she was in Bali at the time. And she said, "I can't take on any more clients." So I'm like, flat out, I honestly can't take on anyone else. She goes, "She's dying. You need to take her on." And so they saved my life. So I went there maybe 2 weeks later when she got back. And I went in there, and she said, "Oh, okay, so I've seen your results. I know that you're not well." And I said, "Honestly, you can look into my eyes without any disrespect to anyone. You can look into my eyes and tell me this, this, and this is wrong with me, and it's going to cost me $1,000, and I'll just pay it. If you tell me you can help me, I'll just pay it." She's like, "I'm not going to take your money from you if I can't help you, but I think I'll be able to help you." So she's got a machine in her rooms that test cells in real time, something from overseas, and which my little science head loves still. And she tested everything. And I didn't initially, because I was still skeptic at this time, so I didn't initially tell her all of my results. She had seen a couple of them, and the rest I hadn't told her. And she said to me, "What's something that is not on here that they have said to you is bad?" And I said, "I don't want to say anything." And she's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just still skeptic." She goes, "What about your spleen? Is your spleen fine?" And I was like, "Yeah, my spleen's fine," knowing that my spleen was not fine. And so she tested it, and it didn't even move past 13. It should have been up at around 50 hertz, and it was at 13. She goes, "You are not well." And I was like, "Okay, I now believe you."
So this machine is the thing you were skeptical of. Was it? Did
The
she
whole
take?
naturopath
Did she
thing.
take a specimen of your saliva? Were you holding on to something? Was it hair? Like
Yeah.
what?
Holding onto two copper handles attached to a computer system.
Uh-huh. Mm.
And then she took me into another room and attached things to around my head, around my skull, around my brain. And then it comes up on a huge, big screen, my body. And then they can zoom into cells. I don't actually know what it's called. But so she put me on, it cost me $850. And I was like, "Yep, no worries, I'll pay it." And I was just put on all this homeopathic stuff. And I kept doing research, and up in my newsfeed came breath work. So I was like, "Oh, well, this isn't really me, but I need to get better. I still feel terrible." And so I went and did my first breathwork session, and I went and I was like a soldier. I was like this. I'm like, "Yep, I'm here to do breathwork and introduce myself, blah, blah, blah." It was just a one-on-one. And she said, "I might touch your chest. I may touch your hands through the session." I'm like, "Yep, no worries." Anyway, I lay there, and then it finished. And I said, "How come you didn't touch me?" She goes, "Your body was like, get the fuck away from me." And I said, "Oh my God." And she's like, "You did not want to borrow this session." And I was like, "I'm honestly trying to help myself." So then she had a group session, and I went to a group session, and I drove there, and I was like, "Be open, Susan. Be open. All this stuff can help you. Be open." So I went there, and in front of my face, as clear as I can see right now, was, "You need to save yourself." And I just lost it again. And then, I said, she went through everyone at the end, and I said, "I've been pretty sick," and it just came up that I need to save myself. And I do honestly believe that I need to save myself, like no one else can save me. And so I was seeing the naturopath every 4 weeks. I did breath work. I came across SJ, spinal energetics, and I was like, "What's this?" Anyway, so I went to spinal energetics, and I was like, "This is incredible." So that's how I've gone down this energetics path, and I love it. I love it. So June last year, I had I woke up and I felt good. I actually legitimately felt good. And I was like, oh my God, this is how normal people feel. This is how I'm meant to feel. I don't remember feeling like this. I don't know when I last felt like this. And then it took until the November of last year before I had one solid, good 5 days. And I said, oh my God, I'm in the clear. And then I went backwards again. Not bad backwards, but backwards to exhaustion. And so I just kept going with the flow. I just kept breath work, spinal energetics, homeopathic stuff from the naturopath. I just kept putting all these little stepping stones into place and kept just following my own little rules. And yeah, I had 5 good weeks from last December. So this time last year, I started to feel really good, and I was good for 5 weeks. Then I went backwards for a couple of weeks, but I've come good. And actually, funnily enough, in the last 3 weeks, so normally it gets to nighttime and I am exhausted. Like, I cannot even explain how tired I am. But this is my 3rd week now. For the first time in at least 2.5 years, 3 years, that I've been able to stay awake at night. Like, even my kids are like, Mom, I can't believe you're still awake. I'm like, me neither. And I feel really good. They're like, oh my God, are you finally completely better? I'm like, I hope so. Like, I think so. So that's my little story and
Wow.
how I've ended up down this road. So I actually saw you when you were at Spinal Energetics with SJ.
I'm just thinking, I'm looking at your face. I'm like, oh, I know. I said we haven't met before this call, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember you now.
Yeah, I
like,
didn't get to speak to you that day because I feel like there were so many other practitioners there, and I was like, oh, I don't even know if I'm meant to be here, but it was great. I loved it.
yeah. It was a talk, an evening
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Sarah Jane Perry, who we actually went to university together, and she's the
Ah,
creator of Spinal Energetics, and you were there for
yeah,
all the listeners that are trying to piece all the pieces together. As I realized about 10 minutes ago when you were saying things, I'm like, oh, no, I do. I remember you in the crowd. That's really, I think that your story it's a testament to, as I alluded to before, trusting yourself. And as you
yeah,
said in that breathwork session where you're like, you have to save yourself. Like, you have to be the one to save you.
mm,
I'm a practitioner, but I am also a person that experiences health things as
yeah,
well. I haven't had anything as if we want to compare, severe as you, but definitely surgeries and chronic things and all of that stuff as well as the listeners will have. But I think as a practitioner, when people come to you and they're like, you have to save me, you have to, like, you're going to have the answer, you're going to have the things. I always think, how can I help this person realize that they are saving themselves?
yeah,
And I am the person that can help facilitate that. I can give you the information. And it's much like you as a PT. When someone's coming to you to help them, say, lose weight or get fit or do all the things, like, you can tell people the
yeah,
information that they need. You can push them in, or guide them in the right direction. But it is ultimately up to the person
yeah,
to make that change. So I think your whole story is a testament to the incredible amount of self-responsibility and self-trust that you've had throughout this whole journey, whether it was from the IVF through to the brain stints, the fluid buildup, to then feeling like maybe all of your organs are shutting down, the iron issues, like, what is going on? And you've just had this unrelenting trust and belief in your body
yeah, yeah,
and in yourself, and being like, okay, I don't like how I feel, but there are going to be people that come in to help me, but ultimately it's up to me.
yeah. And one of the subsequent breathwork sessions I went to, I did multiple. And sometimes I had, something come over me. Sometimes I didn't. But this one particular time was, you are going to be okay. And I just was like, oh my God, I actually do believe that I'm going to be okay. And I was never, I know a lot more and believe in my intuition a lot more, but I didn't realize I was doing it at the time with any of it, especially the brain surgery. I didn't really realize. And then when I was retraining my brain, I was like, wow, this is a thing.
How many times have you been told everything looks fine while you still feel exhausted, bloated, anxious, have skin issues, period pain, and totally feel off? Without saying it, people are thinking it's all in your head. But you know something isn't right. Your body knows it too. And let me tell you, your symptoms, they aren't random. They're messages. Messages that blood tests don't always pick up because they only show a snapshot in time. Great when you're bad enough to need medication or surgery, not so great when you want to make sense of your body. If you really want to understand what's happening beneath the surface, that's where Test Your Fundamentals comes in. This isn't just another test. It's a functional health tool that gives you real answers. Using HDMA or hair tissue mineral analysis, it gives you a 3-month report card of how your body's been functioning, internally and externally, showing exactly why you're feeling the way you do. Unlike standard blood work, HDMA can detect nutrient imbalances, heavy metals, and deficiencies that could be wreaking havoc on your hormones, mood, metabolism, and gut. So instead of guessing what supplements you need or throwing money at another miracle diet, this gives you real, personalized answers about what your body actually needs. Here's how it works. You'll get a personalized HDMA test, a breakdown of your results in plain English, access to practitioner quality supplements, and a step-by-step lifestyle recommendations tailored to your 4 fundamentals. So you know exactly how to support your body your way. Your body isn't broken and it's always working for you. You just need the right tools to listen. That's what Test Your Fundamentals gives you. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start taking action, head to femalefundamentals.com.au and order your Test Your Fundamentals hair test today. There's also a link in our show notes.
And I think that's the thing, a lot of us, when we feel like we are being dismissed, which has happened a lot,
Oh, it's terrible.
and particularly when we're using different methods to tell us whether there's something wrong or not. We're using an external validation tool. So we're using a CT scan, a blood test, a whatever the naturopaths holding onto the copper things. It's a different thing that's externally trying to tell us, yes, whatever you're feeling is valid because we can see it on this thing. So it is amazing to have all of these different tools at our disposal. Same with, we could go as far as to say a Whoop or a fitness tracker or something like that. It gives us this biofeedback, which is amazing. But I just want to encourage people, and I also hear in your story, if one of these things says that there's quote unquote nothing wrong, it doesn't mean that your symptoms aren't valid or what you're experiencing aren't valid. It just means that that tool or how someone interpreted that tool might not be the correct one. I sort of use the analogy of when you try and use a telescope to look at a cell, you're going to be like, there's no such thing as a cell, like you're crazy. Or you're trying to use a microscope to find Jupiter. You're never going to see Jupiter. It's the wrong tool. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means we didn't do that. So the thing that we can hear so clearly in your story, and the thing that carries you through that, is that self-trust, whether you want to call it intuition, but also when we have that, and it's also that self-responsibility and going, okay, I'm actually going to take action here and not holding on to that, well, this is just me. This is just what I have to deal with. These are the cards I've been dealt, and this is my identity. And that's where you said so beautifully, you're going to be okay. Like that feeling, like hearing the voice of that, I can just, like, I've got tingles even thinking about it. Like that's what I often tell myself. It could be something small, like you've broken up with a partner, or you've lost your job, or you've got into a fight with someone, or you're going through a health condition of some kind, all these different symptoms, and you ultimately, it's like the fear is, I don't think I'm going to be okay. I don't think I'm going to be okay in some way, shape, or form. And what we do is we talk to our friends, we talk to our mum or our parents or a doctor or someone, and all we want from anyone is for them to help us feel like everything's going to be okay. Like you're going to be okay. Ultimately, that's what we want. So when you could give that to yourself, I've got goosebumps. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah, it was very, very cool. And I'm well aware that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And, if the homeopathic stuff that I was given from the naturopath didn't help me to some degree feel better, I wouldn't have believed in that tool that she used either, the handles that I have to hold on to. So that's exactly right.
Yeah. And that's where it comes to, I speak about this a lot, is using your body, not your bias, to make decisions. And that's where we can do that when we understand what the hell our body is actually trying to tell us. Like, we can actually tune into it, we can connect to it, and we can understand, oh, that's actually not normal. Like, this is a symptom from my body telling me it doesn't like it. Like, I'm not using my bowels every day. It doesn't mean that you're dying. It's a sign though from your body that, hey, whatever you're doing, it doesn't like. That's actually not a normal thing, even though it's really common, or it's been whatever's your normal. It's still a symptom from your body, but you're missing it. So it could be something small like that, or it could be something like, I've got this insane headache and it has been there for a really, really long time, and everyone's telling me it's normal and it's fine. It's just because I'm a new mum. It's like, no, that is a sign as well. It's a much louder sign. But that's where, when we can go, oh, okay, what actually is quote unquote a green flag or a healthy sign for my body? And then being able to connect to and trust your body, which you are so amazing at doing, and then going, okay, I'm going to use whatever tool I need. It's not a bias based on naturopaths are crazy. They don't know what they're talking about, or doctors are terrible. They always dismiss me, or they always just want to give me a drug and they don't actually fix what's going on, or spinal energetics. What the hell is that? This person's just like moving around weirdly. Like, are they making that up? They're convulsing. Like, what is even happening? Like, we have all of these different stories about stuff.
Yeah.
But what you've been so amazing at doing is trusting your body, not your bias. You're like, you know what? I'll just breath work. What the hell's that? All right, I'll try it. Let's see.
I just went by myself and just booked in.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the first time you did the solo one, and she was like, I didn't touch you. Your body was like, absolutely no way. You do not want this at all. And then like coaching yourself through that, because that even of itself is like, or maybe you had a little bit of bias there. Like, you wanted to go, but you're still like, this is probably not going to work. This is a bit crazy. Woo woo.
And I didn't know what to expect either.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Like, what do I do at breath work? Like, what do I do?
Do I breathe? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Wait,
how do I breathe?
Yeah. It's all of the head noise that we have. But it's just so amazing in your story to hear that you've got that self-trust, that awareness, and the openness to go, well, my body is going to tell me what works and what doesn't by, oh my gosh. And clearly what you're doing is working because you're feeling the best you've felt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I felt good for a long time, but definitely even not being tired at night I can't even tell you. It's huge. It sounds so trivial, but it's huge. Yeah.
It's not trivial at all. So I just want to end with a couple of questions. What would be the advice that you would give to a woman that might be listening at the moment that is facing these complex health conditions? They might be in the middle of going, no one is listening to me. I really feel like there's something going on and I'm being dismissed. What would you tell someone that's in that time now?
For me, I just think it's really important that you can have different doctors for different things or different people for different things. But if you're not getting somewhere with, say, for example, a GP that you've had for however many years, it's okay to go and see someone else. Like, you don't need to second guess yourself that you're going to get a second opinion on whatever, whether it be you think it's trivial or someone else thinks, who cares? You have to look after yourself. So if you need to go, if you haven't got the proper answers and someone else can treat you differently, say, for example, like IVF, I kept losing, I kept miscarrying. So I went to another doctor. I ended up pregnant. Would I have eventually got pregnant by the initial doctor? We'll never know, nor do I care. At that time, the answer that he gave me didn't really sit well with me. And so I seeked out someone else. So I just think people need to be okay with getting other opinions. And they do need to get other opinions.
Yeah, that's amazing, amazing advice there. What would you like to see change in the healthcare system, if anything? If you could wave a magic wand, how would you change it?
This probably sounds really bad in my circumstance. I just want them to care more. It's not really they need to care more. When I went to emergency that time, so when I ended up having the brain surgery, my neurologist said, if he had taken you seriously back in May, we wouldn't be in this situation. And not that I dwell on it. I know that this is my story, but it doesn't I don't go kind of harp on it. Yeah. And I just would like the doctors to be in emergency in this case, in this instance, new patient, okay, I'm on 100% like I am with anyone else, as if I've never seen another patient today. What is this patient telling me, and what can I do my best to help them? Rather than be, oh, a little bit dramatic, don't you think? The way he spoke to me was so bad.
Mm. And that's where sometimes as practitioners it's removing your bias. Because
Yeah,
we all have bias. We all have stories in our head. That's how
yeah,
we form our reality.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's checking your stories. Like, check yourself and go like, okay, is this me? Have I actually done what I'm trained in doing and remained open-minded and actually trust this patient? Trust
yeah,
that they're telling me the truth and they're not over exaggerating, or it's, oh my
yeah,
gosh, just, it's not a big deal. It's like, if this were your, and it's unfortunate that we have to phrase it like this, but often when you're in the instance of like, I'm in emergency and there are like hundreds of people that you're seeing every day and that's your reality, and you could be like, okay, which ones do I take seriously, quote unquote, and which ones don't I? If we can hold in our minds that, like, trust that this person is telling you the truth. Like, if this
yeah,
was your mum, sister, daughter, brother, cousin, auntie, or whatever, how would you want them to be treated? And it's
yeah,
unfortunate that we have to do that to humanize people, but to a certain extent, it's really helpful when we do. So
yeah.
I love
And
that.
despite my story, I'm actually never sick. Like, I never get, like, all I want is like, well, I don't really, but all I would love is like a common cold. Like, just give me a runny nose or something, But I'm actually never sick, despite my story being long. I'm and dramatic, but I'm actually never sick. And
Well,
now I'm the healthiest I've ever been.
yeah, it's amazing. It's, again, that's a sign from your body that it's built its resilience.
Mm,
Because there's always things around our environment, but obviously your body is amazing at fighting them off, which is great. So I
yeah.
just wanted to end with this question. What does listening to your body mean to you now?
Just stay in your awareness of yourself. Like, if I didn't listen to my intuition, and if not that I knew back then as much as I know now, um, but if I didn't constantly come back to myself and listen to what my body was trying to tell me, I potentially wouldn't be here today.
Mm,
So just trust yourself. If you think that there is an issue, trust yourself, but also be proactive. Like, don't sit in, oh, this is me, this is my life, I am so sick, I am this, I am that. There are so many natural ways that are cost less that you can do for yourself, to improve your health, aside from anything else. Just
mm.
constantly listening to your body is, I harp on about it with my clients every day.
That is
So
amazing, amazing information and advice and story. I think this is going to resonate with a lot of
I
people.
hope so. Just don't give up on yourselves.
Yes. Thank you, Susan, for sharing your story. And I can't wait to see what your journey, how your journey unfolds in the future.
Thank you so much. I've loved being on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very privileged to be on.
If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to think of the woman in your life who might need this too. Maybe it's a friend who's been feeling exhausted, a sister searching for answers to chronic symptoms, or someone who just needs the reminder that feeling good in her body is her natural baseline. And if you haven't already, subscribing is the best way to spread this message and make sure you keep getting the answers and resources you need. Together, we're redefining how women connect with their bodies. And I'm so grateful to have you as part of this community. So, I invite you to get curious with me. If your body isn't the problem, it's the solution, what do you think your body's trying to tell you today? Please remember, this episode is for educational purposes only. Always consult a qualified health practitioner before making any medical decisions. Every body is different, and so is every healing journey.